Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I see a few people in the room already. Just give us a few minutes and we will get started. See a few more people coming in. Thank you all for joining. Just give us one more minute for a few other attendees to join, and then we will get started. Okay, everyone, thank you for your patience. We are ready to get started. So this webinar today is all about the top 5 use cases for MTA data. As you all know, I'm sure, since you're all on the line, Rockerbox is a provider of multi-touch attribution, media mix modeling, and incrementality testing services. We've been in the MTA space for many, many years, so this is very, very close to our core competency, and I'm extremely excited to be able to be here and talking to you all about what I think are some of the top use cases for all of that MTA data that Rockerbox puts at your fingertips. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. And as soon as things pop up, I will do my best to answer them as we go. I will also leave a bit of time at the end, so there'll be a bit of space there at the very, very end of the session to ask questions as well. So if you don't have time to ask questions during the session, or you don't want to interrupt, that's absolutely fine. I'll make sure that we have a few minutes left at the end of the call as well to go through that. Okay, so let's dive right in. Why is it important to think about the use cases for all of that MTA data? Well, I think there are 2 really big reasons why it can be hard to work with data from MTA. The first and probably the most important, honestly, is that it can just feel sometimes like there's too much data to work with. So MTA unlocks a huge number of use cases, but sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming. Everyone, I think, has had the experience of analysis paralysis, where you just kind of have so many things to do, so many ways of looking at things, that you end up a little bit stuck. And so sometimes it can be useful to just take a step back and focus a little bit, make sure you think about what are the absolute most important things that you can focus on and do with all of this data. The other is confliction or conflict with other data sources. So I like to say that marketing is really the art of decision-making with uncertain information. And I think introducing an MTA platform into the mix of all of your media measurement is a really great example of that, because for sure, when you get kicked off with multi-touch attribution, it's going to conflict with a lot of other information that you have. So if you already have a media mix model, it's very likely that the results from your MTA are going to conflict with the media mix model. If you have test results, it's probably going to conflict with those. And certainly, if you have other types of attribution systems, so let's say that is results being reported in platform from one of your big media partners, or maybe it is results being reported in your GA4 or your other web analytics instance, then for sure MTA, something like Rockerbox MTA, is going to conflict. And so it's really important to just take stock of what do we think MTA is really good at and good for, and what is that data useful for, versus where should we let a different type of analysis tool take the lead. Otherwise, it's very, very easy to just get bogged down in kind of comparing results from different sources. And then before you know it, everyone's confused, and it becomes very, very difficult to make those decisions. So the more that you can keep things clear in your mind, make sure you know what MTA is used for and use it in the right way, the better. So without further ado, we're going to get into 5 different separate use cases that I think are really, really important for MTA. Centralization first, deduplication, journey mapping, removal of bias, and then analysis enablement. I think analysis enablement probably could be an entire webinar in its own right. But for now, we're not going to get too ambitious today. We're just going to go through these 5, and we can maybe save that analysis enablement for a separate session, if that would be useful for everyone. So let's talk about centralization. I think this is probably a familiar problem to a lot of people, which is that a lot of marketing data can feel very, very scattered. There might be spend data in a lot of different systems. There might be conversion data that's sort of conflicting in a lot of different systems. And one of the best use cases in my mind for MTA is just about centralization. So bringing all of that data together, having it consolidated in a single place, so that, for instance, if you want to be able to gather all of your marketing spend from a single place, it's very, very easy to do so. Same with conversions. We have an extremely robust process for ingesting conversion data. So you can think also, from a marketing perspective at least, of that conversion data as being very much consolidated and centralized within your MTA tool. So a lot of this is to say that it allows you to stop jumping between platforms to get all of the data that you need. You should be able to get almost everything that you want from your MTA, as long as your MTA is set up and running properly. And having that single consolidated or centralized point of truth or point of contact for all of your data means that you can have consistency across a lot of teams, because you already have then a really strong starting point. So you can have the media team, marketing team, your analytics and finance teams all on the same page and starting from the same place when it comes to viewing all of that marketing data. So a very, very good starting point for in making sure that all of that data is centralized into a single system. Okay, second topic we talked about was optimization. So I would say arguably optimization is really the core day-to-day task of many, many media professionals. Sure, there's a lot of strategizing, there's a lot of planning, but ultimately optimization is really the big impact on a day-to-day basis that a media planner or media buyer can have for their brand. What is the challenge here? Well, the challenge is that, as I'm sure you all are aware, different ad platforms will often take credit for the same conversions. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's say that a single ad platform A, they are able to see that they served an ad and that user converted. Now, platform B, they serve an ad and the user converted, and they can see that. But those platforms aren't talking to each other. So when that user, that end converting user is the same user, both of those different platforms are taking credit for that conversion, for that sale. And so you end up with a duplicated set of information. So having a system that is deduplicated allows you to optimize on a per user basis. So every sale is counted once. Fantastic. It also allows us to reconcile all of our measurable touch points. So not only are we deduplicating between those different platforms, but we're also reconciling across a whole bunch of different platforms, not just A and B, but also C, D, E, F, et cetera, anything that can be measured should be included in your MTA. And once you have all of that together, obviously you have a great starting point for your optimization. So again, similar to when we were talking about centralization, really the whole idea here is to bring everything into a single source of truth that maybe is not the only system or the only thing that we start making optimization decisions on, but at the very least, it becomes that starting point. Now, there are some nuances here that we should go into. So one is MTA, for the most part, is not measuring incrementality. So it will measure any touch point and any conversion where there is some kind of linkage there, right? Where we know that the user was exposed to an ad or clicked on an ad, and where they then subsequently went on to convert. Now, what it doesn't say is for sure this advertising drove that user to convert. That's not necessarily the case. So it might be that you need to then layer in information from a media mix model or from an incrementality test, and then adjust all of your results within MTA in order to get a truly reliable foundational source of data that you can then use for optimization. But what's coming out of MTA is that starting point, and I'll explain a little bit why. So firstly, MTA data should be very, very rapidly refreshed, at least on a daily basis. So if you have daily data, it is by definition very, very up to date. And it also should be complete. It should be complete of all of the channels that you're running in that can be included. Maybe a couple that are very hard to include in MTA, but in general, all of your channels should be in there. So we have completeness and we have timeliness. And those are things that other measurement methodologies really struggle with. So if we think about MMM, MMM is historic looking. It typically isn't super up to date. There's usually a little bit of a lag because it takes time to collect the data. It takes time to refresh a model. And oftentimes it is not complete in the sense that it cannot easily measure your very, very smallest, most tactical types of campaigns. So maybe it's going to be missing some of the very, very smallest channels that you're in or the very smallest publishers that you're in, or it might be missing some of the subcategories. So maybe it can measure a publisher, but it can't measure the difference between remarketing and prospecting within that publisher. So it might not be complete, and it certainly won't be quite so up to date, quite so real time as MTA. Testing, likewise, is typically point in time. So it's just going to be a measurement of, say, a 1 month period, and it's just measuring one channel at a time or one tactic at a time. So having a complete view of the world with testing, very, very hard. And because it is a point in time measure, it is typically a little bit backwards looking in the sense that once the test is over, that test is sort of stuck in the past and we're moving away from that data. So again, testing and MMM, good ways to adjust your MTA data, but your MTA data is going to be very much the most complete, most real time. A question from Natasha in the chat, is MTA built from GA4 and CRM? I'm wondering the per user basis. So Rockerbox MTA is not based on GA4. It's completely built from scratch. We do have the ability to integrate with CRM systems. Details of that should be in our help docs on our site. But it is very much, I would say, a more holistic tool than GA4 specifically in terms of the attribution piece, because we're not just matching users on a click or on a GA4 analytics tag, which is what GA4 would generally be using. We're able to pull in data from, say, post-purchase surveys. We're able to use integrations that we have directly with a very, very large number of publishers. We're able to match timestamps for TV to be able to include TV. So it's a much more broader based tool than just what you would be used to with GA4, which is very much going to be focused on the GA4 cookies and the clicks that GA4 can measure into the site. Hopefully, Natasha, that answered your question. Okay, so let's move on from optimization and talk a little bit about journey mapping. So one of the great things that is enabled by MTA, thanks to the fact that it deduplicates and it is able to tie together journeys at the user level, is that we can actually start to see some of the ways in which different channels overlap. So we talked a little bit earlier about this idea of duplication and deduplication, and people could have a touch point with channel A and a touch point in channel B. Well, MTA starts to pick apart how many of your buyers, how many of your users actually have that overlap, how many were touched by channel A and touched by channel B, and how many were just channel A on its own and just channel B on its own. And furthermore, we can get even deeper into which one did they see first, and how many touch points does it typically take to get a converting user. So quite a lot of really interesting analysis that you can do here, which will unlock lots of things like creative types of strategies, and also just thinking about that channel interaction. If a consumer is seeing an ad here and an ad here, would we want them to see exactly the same creative, or should we start thinking about those channels as having different roles? And if people are seeing both creatives in different places, how should those creative assets interact and communicate with one another? Importantly, journey mapping can also inform other testing and MMM type methodologies. So if we think about testing, one of the big questions often in setting up an incrementality test is how long should this test be? So tests can be quite expensive to run, a little bit disruptive for the business. You don't want to run them for longer than you absolutely have to. And so for that reason, if you know that a channel typically converts within 7 days, then you have a good reason to keep that test nice and compact. However, if you have reason to believe from your MTA journey data that a channel takes 60 days to convert, then clearly a 30-day test is not going to be good enough. Likewise, when we're building an MMM, we might want to know what is the saturation curve. So how long does it take for that channel to have an impact? And if we're able to bring some of that intelligence from MTA into that modeling process as a prior, then we actually get better results, more accurate models, and the entire modeling process can be faster and better as a result. So lots of different ways in which we can think about this journey data as being super useful. Okay, next up, removal of bias. So the thing about Rockerbox that it's worth noting is that we are an independent organization within DoubleVerify. We are not a media buying tool. We do not buy media for any of our clients. We are not a publisher. We are not a platform. And as a result, we really have no skin in the game, if you like, when it comes to whether a channel is performing well or not. We have really no reason to make it look like a channel is doing better than it really is. So we have that true independent spirit. And for that reason, we think that our results or our data is objectively just a little bit more independent and a little bit more trustworthy than it would be otherwise. We have no conflict of interest in terms of the data and the results. So a very, very good reason to use an MTA as opposed to relying on results that might be coming from something less independent. Okay, and then I promised you a last one on analysis enablement. So the number of independent different analyses that MTA unlocks is pretty broad. I'm going to go through each of these 4 that I have listed out here that we can talk about, but there are definitely many, many more. So if you're really curious, feel free to email me afterwards, and we can always set up time to talk through some other ideas as well. But a few that I'd like to go into. LTV models, so long-term or lifetime value models for customers, are super, super interesting. We can actually use data from MTA to build an LTV model from scratch. That's relatively straightforward to do. And that is extremely high impact because it allows you to understand what is the CPA hurdle that you should think about when you're running media in order to have a profitable relationship with a customer. So I'll give a little bit of an unpack on what that means. Let's say that you have a customer that comes to you and they purchase for the first time. You've never seen this customer before, truly a new customer, and they buy a product worth $100. Now, it'd be tempting to say, I need to spend only $50 to get that $100 conversion because, and $50 on media, I mean, because that's what it takes to be profitable. However, if we build an LTV model, we might be able to say that actually that relationship that you've just opened with the $100 sale is worth $1,000 because that customer will come back and they will buy again and again and again. Well, in that case, you actually might be willing to spend quite a lot more on media than just $50 in order to get what will ultimately be a $1,000 customer. Once you have that value, that long-term value, lifetime value, you can then tie that back into your MTA, and you can push new CPA hurdles or new CPA goals into your data in order to be able to understand the profitability and over the long term from your media. Now, we can also start to look at for more and less valuable customers, where are they more or less likely to come from? So maybe some customers who are much higher value are coming more from one media channel, whereas your lower value customers are coming from another media channel. That's very interesting because that then allows us to go back to that optimization step that we talked about earlier and start thinking about how to optimize the media to attract higher value customers. Or maybe we're just going to start spending more because we know that that media is driving higher impact, and maybe the media that's driving lower value clients, we actually pull back on that because we know that that media by definition is less profitable. So a lot that can be unpacked through the intelligent application of LTV with and in conjunction with MTA. Second is cohort analysis. This is very much related to LTV in the sense that what we're trying to unpick here with a cohort analysis is to understand for customers who became customers for the first time, let's say last year versus a year before that versus a year before that, has there been any evolution over time in how loyal they are? And furthermore, are there differences in these different cohorts of user in terms of the media channels that originally brought them into the brand versus the ones that are bringing them back for subsequent purchases? That can help you understand the evolution of your media over time, how the media impact has changed, maybe some nuance around how your optimizations have been effective at driving new customers and driving repeat business. Thirdly, nuanced testing and testing type analyses. Well, the example that I put in here is brand search, so I'm going to talk about brand search. As I said, MTA is really great at bringing together a lot of different channels so that we can understand the impact of each different channel separately, and we can see them all in the same place. So let's say that we wanted to do a test of brand search. Brand search is a really interesting channel because it has a substitute. What I mean by that is if someone searches for your brand name and they do not click on the paid search ad, or maybe they don't even see a paid search ad, then there'll always be an organic ad for them to click instead. Now, most media channels obviously don't work like that. If a customer doesn't see your TV ad, then they're not just going to see another TV ad for you. They just won't have experienced that media. But brand search is very different like that. Brand search will almost always have that organic result that will come up instead of your paid search ad or below your paid search ad. Now, if we have MTA data, we can see how many of your conversions were driven by those paid brand search ads versus the organic results. And so if we were to do a test where, let's say, we shut off brand search, so we're going to take the spend in your brand search channel all the way to 0, and we're going to leave it like that for, let's say, 2 weeks. So originally, let's say, we were getting 100 conversions a day coming from paid brand search. Now that's going to go from 100 to 0, obviously, because you're not spending anymore, so you can't possibly get any more clicks, so you can't get any more conversions from brand search. Now, what's going to happen with your organic search-driven conversions is that they're going to go up because people who are no longer clicking on the paid brand search ad are now clicking on the organic result. So we can see of those 100 that we lost every day, those 100 conversions, how many are we getting back? Are we getting back 10, 50, 80? Obviously, if we're getting back 80 versus if we're getting back 10, then that makes us think very, very differently about the impact of paid brand search. And all of that is really unlocked through MTA because we can actually see the replacement of the paid search conversions with those organic search conversions. So a lot of kind of testing-like activity can be unlocked from having that great MTA data at your fingertips. Okay, the very last one is to do with audience segmentation. I personally love audience segmentation. I think it's a super interesting type of analysis and really kind of inspirational when it comes to thinking about and understanding your customer, what makes them tick, what kinds of people they are, and how to treat them creatively, and so on and so forth. So typical audience segmentation often usually runs on maybe a customer survey. So we'll take a very broad customer survey, we'll ask a lot of questions, and then we'll do some sort of segmentation analysis that groups the audience into, say, 5 categories of people. And we'll be able to say, category A, they're more likely to live here, maybe they skew younger, these are their interests, these are the products that they buy from you. Category B, maybe they skew differently in terms of age. Maybe they live more commonly in a different place and they have a different set of interests, and so on and so forth. That's all very well, but it doesn't necessarily tell us a ton about their media habits and the media that actually drives them to interact with and convert with your brand. If we were running audience segmentation using MTA data combined with purchase data, we can say all of those things that we talked about earlier, so we have some of that demographic information, we have a lot of the location information, so we can talk about the audience and their characteristics, but we can also say for audience A, they're much more likely to have found you through paid social, for example, whereas audience B, they're much more likely to have found you through paid search. And so in that sense, we're then able to take these really inspiring customer segments, which would always have driven our creative, but we're able to apply that creative back to the actual media channel, the actual environment in which that audience is going to be experiencing the media. So it really takes a kind of classic audience segmentation type of exercise and levels it up a lot, because at that point, we're able to start thinking and talking about its tie back to media and how it should drive media strategy. So super interesting type of activity that we can do from MTA data. Okay, we are halfway through our allotted time. That is all that I have, I believe, in terms of slides. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes in case people have any follow-up questions they want to put in the chat, and then we can wrap up the session. So just in case people are typing, I will stall for a second and just thank everyone for coming and taking a little chunk out of their day to spend time with me talking about this topic. I always enjoy talking about analysis and measurement and MTA and marketing, and would be happy to answer any further questions, or if you want to set up time with me separately, please do. You should all have my email, and yeah, feel free to get in touch anytime. All right, I will give it one more minute. Otherwise, I think we can end the session. Okay, great. I'm going to take the silence to assume that no one has any questions, and we can end the call here. Thanks everyone for joining, and hope to see you on a future webinar here with Double Verify Rockerbox. Thanks everyone.